What's going on, Javier Lobby? It's your boy Javier with the Javier Show. Make sure you say it twice. Alright, in this video, I want to discuss black oppression and the black identity. Now, there's something that I made a mistake on, and I want to discuss that in this video. But also, I want to go over a little something to give people context if this is your first time watching my show or seeing any of my videos. Now, for those of you who have been watching the Javier Show for over the past year or so, or maybe saw me on a different program or show where we discuss race, I felt like I've discussed race to the point where I am personally exhausted. And I've said that on many different occasions. But I find myself continuously being put back in a situation where I have to either address something that's going on in the mainstream media, or somebody wants me on their show to discuss race in particular. It may be because I am a black conservative. I mean, you could also add atheists in there, but that's not really important in this conversation. But if any of you seen my talks, you know my positions when it comes to victimhood mentality in the black community or in America in general. And I am more on the hard line of asking black people to take accountability for what they can control in their lives and build upon that. There is an error in my thinking, and I ask myself, what am I missing that the opposition is getting versus what I'm getting that the opposition is missing? A lot of times when we have these conversations about a variety of topics, it's not about being right. It's about understanding your opponent's position and seeing if you can extract any value from it to build upon. You can't call yourself a free thinker or intellectual if you're not really honestly considering another person's position. So a lot of times I walk away from these conversations when we're talking about race, and I honestly find myself confused on how black people can think the certain ways about being a victim in America in 2021. And a lot of times the past comes up, slavery, Jim Crow, and we have to touch on these subjects a lot. And people say, well, it wasn't even that long ago. Now, if many of you seen my video that I released, and I was actually on the Godless Granny channel where I debated 3 progressives or 3 liberals, they were all black. And this kept coming up time and time again, that I was dismissing what black people have been through in America. So I did my due diligence, and I really tried hard to think about what it is that I'm missing. And though I don't agree with that position wholeheartedly, I must say that I made an error in my judgment on this particular situation. Now, before I get into that, I want to give you a little context on why I take the position that I do. I grew up in the projects. Not only did I grow up in the projects, I was a troubled youth. I found myself getting involved with certain activities that probably wasn't the best for me or my family or friends or the people around me. And I found myself doing time. I paid the price for that. I found myself getting out, diving deep into religion, eventually getting into politics. And I asked myself, based on the upbringing that I had, why I don't think like most black people think when it comes to the issue of race in America. Well, for one, I had to think that I was never taught to be a victim. It wasn't even a conversation or a subject in my neighborhood. I never for once felt oppressed growing up as a black kid. Even though I grew up in the projects, I remember coming out of the house and guys were rolling dice and playing cards and gambling, drinking, smoking, you name it, right outside of my door. I could smell it inside of my room while they were outside of my window. These were never something that I stopped to ask myself, is this right? Is this the way that we should be living? It was just the way things were. I don't ever remember being oppressed or feeling oppressed. I remember people telling me that I was oppressed. But it never was something that registered with me. Or maybe it just flew over my head. None of my friends felt this way either. For the longest, I never remember having any conversations with friends growing up about how the white man wanted to keep us down and that we had to avoid white people at all costs. But there were certain things that I did that I look back on that made me feel inferior to white people. Give you an example. Whenever me and my friends would go places, maybe to the movies or something, we would see white people and we wouldn't look them in the eye. We would always look down. I never really truly understood why I did that. It was something that was inherently in me, whether I saw older guys in the neighborhood do it, or it was just something that I picked up along the way. I can never really pinpoint why I would do such a thing. But in it was a form of being inferior. Now, luckily for me, I never had any teachers who told me I was a victim. I never had any parents tell me I was a victim or that I was oppressed somehow. It was just basically something I picked up along the way from other people out in the world. And it was just something that I never adopted myself. So as I fast forward, I could look at times where maybe somebody mistreated me because of my race or because of the way I looked or the way I acted. I would sag my pants. I would wear certain symbols on me or certain colors, all of that, which would give off the signal that I was a troubled youth. Could I ever say that it was racism on why the police would pull me and my friend over at the movie theaters and accuse us of something we didn't do? Or maybe it was the way I looked. I don't know. It could very well be racism. But I bring that all up to say, why is it in America in 2021, given the statistics that we know, yes, racism exists. We know this for a fact, that there are people who are racist who go out of their way to harm other people who they feel is inferior due to their race. That's my definition of racism. Not only that, why is it that so many black people who are prosperous in America, even people like the First Lady, Michelle Obama, who feels that they live in fear that something will happen to their daughters one day? Why is it that wealthy, successful black people like LeBron James feel like they must fear that the police is going to gun down their kid or something of that sort? Why is it? And then I had to ask myself, and this is what I've been really thinking about since I've been having these discussions and where I went wrong. White people have had a major impact on the development of African Americans in this country. There's no denying that. I never denied that. But what I overlooked, and this is the major crucial part, that the worst thing that white people ever did to black people was to tie oppression to our identity. Most cultures, and I must say, I apologize, but Italian cultures, Irish cultures, Jewish cultures, all of these different races have a sense of identity, somewhere where they come from, something to be proud of, something to look back to and say, this is where we came from, this is what we stand for, this is what our ancestors fought for, this is the hardships that we had to go through. Look at the great things that we've done, something to be proud of. Now, I would never say that you should be proud of your skin color, but what I will say is you should have a sense of identity, something to identify with. Your culture matters. And I can say this as a conservative because the main reason I'm a conservative is because I believe that humans have a fundamental human nature that we all adhere to, and we have to account for that. And I'm not ignorant to say that you should never judge another person, or that you should never be wary of somebody who looks a certain stereotype or fulfills a certain look, or whatever the case may be. In reality, if you see somebody with a dark hood walking up to you at night, you should be on the lookout. Because we know throughout history, people who fit within a certain category are more likely to commit certain crimes or to behave a certain way. It's just the way it is. And it's not due to race. It could be due to your culture. It could be due to your class or your upbringing. But regardless of that, black people, whole identity is tied up in oppression. There are so many black people walking around right now who don't know where their roots are. They don't know what tribe they come from. They don't know what piece of land that their ancestors were taken from. They just don't know. And when you don't have a sense of identity, because it's in human nature to want to belong to something, you latch on to the closest thing you can find. And the only thing that black people have been able to find in America is slavery, Jim Crow, oppression. So how do you even know how to be black without oppression being tied to your very identity? So regardless if right now in today in 2021, if you have all the opportunities in front of you, you're still human at the end of the day. You want to belong to something. You want to look at somebody you identify with and say, we have something in common. Our ancestors, our plights, the things that we overcame. If every other race can have it, why can't black people have it? If we're being fair here. So a lot of times I have to consider what my opponents are saying. And though I never had anybody put it to me that way, I don't believe in the victimhood mindset. Black people are not victims. The reason I am so hard-pressed to hold black people to a higher standard is because I see what great things black people have accomplished when they put their minds to something. And I would never want to look down on my brother and sister and give them an excuse on why they can't be as great as they possibly can. Even if they are a victim of oppression. What is it that you can take control of in your life? We need a new identity. We need to change what it is that brings us together. Now, some people's answer to that is religion, spirituality. I necessarily don't take that line. But there are parts of black culture which is excellent. And there are parts of black cultures which needs to be criticized and ridiculed. There's a time and a place for all of that. I agree. But I can say so much on this subject, and I will in the future. I will touch more on this, and hopefully I can discuss it with somebody else as time goes on. I look forward to having all of you stick around and keep supporting the show. I appreciate all of that. I want to let y'all know that Thursday I will be on the Ben Fama Jr. show. That's BenFama. Many of y'all know Ben Fama Jr. He just started his show on YouTube again. I will be on that Thursday. Please go subscribe. Go check it out. Go support me over there. But also, if this is your first time watching the Javier Lobby or the Javier show, all I ask is that you subscribe and you'll get more videos. You hit the bell, you're going to get notified of every video that I put out. Whether you come here for the politics, whether you come here for the religion or the culture, you know, write down in the comments below. Tell me what you think. Am I missing something? Am I right in my analysis? Am I on the right track? Is there something that I should consider? I look forward to y'all telling me because I learn from y'all. Not just about sitting here watching me talk, but hearing what other people have to say. Growing as a person, changing my mind, and sometimes just saying, I don't know. With that being said, thank you so much for watching. And as always, peace and glory.
1 in a million to 1 villain. Too hot to be in the kitchen, I'll end up melting the ceiling.